saying? Chose. Then I had a big frowny face, and I think I had tears coming out of the frowny face. Like, I wanted the examiner to know I was that sad. Hello, welcome to my YouTube channel. My name's Hannah, and I have just finished my A-levels. Well, kind of, because you know, Corona. But in today's video, I'm gonna go over my tips and tricks, as well as my experience of actually applying to Oxbridge, my top choice for university this fall. So when I first started the process to applying to Oxbridge, as I just didn't have the information or the knowledge of what to do. Some of this information would have been super helpful for me before I started applying. So yeah. So with that, let's get straight into the video. So first off, I want to establish that I didn't actually decide that I was going to apply to Cambridge for me until July in year 12, which is actually really late, but it was solely down to the fact that I wanted to be a physiotherapist up until that point, and then I changed the whole direction of my future and decided to study psychology. So that's when I fell in love with the course at Cambridge, and I decided that's where I wanted to study and that's where I was going to apply. And so because I decided so late, I had actually missed almost all of the assemblies and like just school meetings that the school put in place for Oxbridge applicants, because they like gave lots of information out and like pamphlets and PowerPoints, and I just missed it all. So I was quite unprepared when I started, and I probably should have done a bit more research, and you can tell that I was unprepared as we go through my story because, oh, I made some mistakes, but it all ended up all right. So my first tip would be to choose your subject first and then see if Oxford or Cambridge is right for you. Because Oxford and Cambridge are tough enough, let alone to choose a subject that you don't want to study just so that you can go to the school. It doesn't logically make sense. I should probably also mention that because it was so late in the year that I decided to apply to Cambridge, I also missed all the trips and open days that they offer there. And so choosing which college to apply to was very difficult. I don't have any ideas on how you decide, because I feel like I kind of looked at a list, looked at like student ratings like about certain things, and I chose what I wanted the most. Like I knew I wanted to be at a small college, and I knew I wanted to be in the center of town, and so I randomly chose Trinity Hall. Really, I spent quite a bit of time stressing about it, but actually like deciding, I probably chose it in like 5 minutes. So going to the open days is actually really helpful if you want to get a feel for which colleges you actually like, and yeah, I wish I had done that. So tip number 2 is to visit Cambridge or Oxford and get a feel for the colleges and if it's even the right city for you. Personally, I live in Oxford, and so I did know that I really liked the feel of this kind of historical city and just the way the campus was set out. Okay, so the next part of the application process is writing your personal statement. So again, I didn't decide on what I was actually going to study till really late, and so I wasn't building up things to write in my personal statement or like doing a bunch of things that would be useful to write so that it would be good for Oxford or Cambridge or even just good for any university, because I know the main tip is to have like an 80-20 rule for education versus like leisure, and if you're being really strict, 90-10. So my third tip is to load up on super curricular activities, because that's what Cambridge and Oxford want to see in your personal statement. They don't really care about any of your extracurricular activities, like whether you play an instrument or whether you play a sport. Like, it's good to add in there, especially for other universities, but you want to have the majority of your personal statement to be supercurricular activities, which are basically just extracurricular activities which apply to your subject. So that would be something like reading a book related to your subject, watching a documentary, and just anything that relates to your subject that you were able to learn something from and that you can talk about. At the beginning, I really struggled with this because I was like, I've done nothing. I wasn't planning on applying to psychology, so like, I was just like, ah! When I sat down and like actually thought about it, I realized I had done a lot of things related to psychology because it was something that I was interested in. I hadn't read as many books as I probably would have liked to because I was quite busy revising and doing other stuff, so I hadn't sat down and actually read books for my personal statement. So in a mad rush, I did read 1, maybe 2 books. So for my personal statement, the supercurricular activities that I found from my life because you can be quite creative with this. Like, things can relate even if they don't like at first glance like look like they relate. So like I included my physiotherapy work experience because I actually interacted with quite a few psychologists because it was a pain management center. And so I was just able to learn something from them, and I was able to reflect on that and put that in my personal statement. My fourth tip is to not just talk about your supercurricular activities and just like list them out, but to explain why they were useful and what you learned from them, what they made you think of, what kind of questions you came out of that, why did it make you feel curious, or did it make you feel curious? Just, they want to know why you're passionate about your subject, and you need to show that you're passionate about your subject. So for example, a big portion of my personal statement was actually about my EPQ, so that's a class that I took for my A-levels in my first year, and I wrote my whole EPQ on a psychological topic. I just talked about what I learned from that because it was quite the experience reading around the psychological topic that I chose and writing an essay on it, and just basically what I learned from that whole experience. I also talked about my work experience for a professor at Oxford. I was a research assistant for him, but basically I did a lot of data entry and I responded to emails for him, but all for his sociology project, whatever they're called. And so that was quite a good experience, and so I knew that was something I should definitely draw upon because not many applicants would have that kind of experience. And so you put those experiences in there and then you say why it was such a good experience, because if you just state that you were this one thing, it doesn't seem that important. But if you talk about why it was important and why it brought meaning to you, you learn from it, then it just means a lot more. Your supercurricular activities can also be really simple and really easy to add if you're trying to fill your personal statement up. I subscribed to BPS Digest. It was something I'd already done because my teacher recommended it, but I actually started reading different articles, and then in my personal statement I was able to talk about a specific article that I read and why I enjoyed it. And so if you're not seeing a pattern here, it's say what it is and then explain it, and say why it was important. You're trying to convince them that you are a hardworking student who is interested in their subject and would be happy to study your subject for 3 years. Because if you're not doing these supercurricular activities in your free time, it doesn't necessarily suggest to the school that you actually want to study what you're applying to study, and they want people who want to study what they're studying. You know what I mean? So I should probably also note that your personal statement is not the most important thing in your Cambridge application, because unlike other universities, it's just one of many things that they use to look at you as a whole person, and there's definitely a holistic approach to how they decide, because you also have your assessment test or whatever it's called, and then you also send in essays, and then you have the interview. So your personal statement is just one tiny part that kind of helps you put your foot in the door. So you want it to be strong, but don't put too much pressure on it, and definitely make sure your personal statement applies to other universities that you're applying to, because Cambridge and Oxford are not the only universities. Now it's test time. I think I'm on my 5th tip now when applying to Oxbridge, is to first be aware that you have to take these admission tests. If you weren't aware, Oxford and Cambridge have these admission tests that all have really fun names like GATS, Geography Admissions Test, the ELAT, the English Literature Admissions Test. So the one that I took was the PBSA-A, which isn't a very fun name, but it just stands for Psychological Behavioral Admissions Assessment. So everyone's else is a test, but mine's an assessment, you know? So tip number six is to actually study for these, because I didn't spend the summer revising for this like a lot of people did. I did revise a little bit beforehand, but it was mostly in the 2 or 3 weeks leading up to it. But definitely do revise for it, and the best way, in my opinion, to revise for it is to take some of the past papers. I think I took 2 past papers. That's just the best way to learn. If you were curious, the PBSA-A has 2 sections. I'm just gonna read it off. Section 1 consists of 3 parts, 2 of which you will complete. So part A, thinking skills, is compulsory, and then you choose either part B, mathematics and biology, or you choose part C, reading comprehension. So each part in section 1 contains multiple choice questions, which is really nice. And the time allowed for section 1 is 80 minutes. So you have 40 minutes for the first part and then 40 minutes for the second part. Section 2, I think they take away section 1's papers and then they bring out section 2 for the next 40 minutes. is an essay writing thing. I think you have four written tasks, and you choose one of those to complete, and you just basically write enough. So story time. And tip number 7 is to 1, read all of the instructions beforehand and then on the day, and 2, bring a pencil. Okay, just gonna say that. Now story time. So I sat down in the exam hall room with all the other Cambridge, Oxford admissions test people. Section 1 finishes. And as I finish and fill in the last bubble, I look up into the corner or wherever it was, and it reads, answer all questions in pencil. That's what it said. It said pencil. You know what I did? I filled out the whole thing in pen. Oh, Hannah, I can't. I was so frustrated with myself, and it was like a Scantron kind of thing, because like it was all multiple choice, and so I was like absolutely convinced that I'd gotten a 0. That was it. I was done, and I was so stressed. And so as section 2 came around and I started that, I was so completely panicked that I couldn't focus on the essay that I was writing. I think I barely wrote maybe 1.5 pages. I know in comparison, there was one other PBSA student, at least I think that's what he was writing, but he had written so much more than me. I'm pretty sure he wrote maybe 2 or 3 pages, but I was just like, I hated every word that I wrote, and it was just because I was so focused on the fact that I just failed the previous section, and I knew like, why am I even writing this? And I actually wrote in the corner of the paper, I'm sorry, I wrote in pen in my previous section. That's not what I don't remember exactly what I wrote, and then I had a big frowny face, and I think I had tears coming out of the frowny face. Like, I wanted the examiner to know I was that sad. So maybe they did give me a benefit of the doubt for my essay. I come home and I told my dad I had a long cry about, like, there was no way I was getting into Cambridge now, and I was crushed. Read the instructions and don't beat yourself about how the test feels, because they're supposed to be really challenging. Like, people don't get 100% on these kind of tests, because definitely try to improve your score and get better at taking those kind of tests, but they're supposed to be difficult. People usually feel like they failed them. I definitely felt like I did much worse in the actual exam one than I had in my 2 previous. Also, you never know what's gonna happen. That's another moral of that story. So when it comes to paperwork is important because lots of it will come your way, and you will get lots of emails, and you should read them all. So tip number 8 is to read everything that you get. Every single email, every single word in the email. Because you don't want to miss something, especially when you're someone like me who just didn't know all of the steps and parts of applying to Oxford and Cambridge. You need to be aware of what's going on, and they will let you know what's happening in the emails that you get sent. And so read the emails. So as you can tell, I had an experience. Basically, one of the emails they had sent me went into my junk drawer thingy in my email, so I didn't read it. And in this email, they basically outline and tell me that I need to mail, like in the post, 2 of my essays with like this teacher, whatever, saying that they're authentic. And I got a email from them a day after the deadline, or on the deadline, basically saying, we don't have your essays. Did you forget to mail them? Did they get lost in the post? Did you not see your email? Which was really kind of like, they did not have to do that. And like, I thought I was done for. Like, I can't believe I didn't see that email and then I didn't have this prepared. But basically, in the email, they're like, okay, well, you can send it to us via email, like just scan it in, but have it in by Monday. And they sent this on Friday afternoon. Like, I was already home from school, and like it was too late to go get the teacher's signatures. And so like all weekend I was super stressed because I wasn't sure if I'd be able to get my teacher's signatures quick enough to be able to submit it to them before the time, like, deadline on Monday. So it did all work out, and I did end up choosing part of my EPQ for my essay and essay I'd written early in year 12. They do ask if the essays are more recent, but I didn't have a lot of essays that my teachers graded because that just wasn't something they did a lot. But that was one of the few that they did grade. I know people do ask a lot of questions what kind of essay to submit, and basically try to give them a good idea of what your essay style is like, so you don't want to choose something that's really old and like doesn't represent how you write now. I quite liked sending my EPQ because it wasn't my like exam style essay writing, because your exam style essay writing is going to be a lot different than like writing an essay for something else. Like, because you use the PEE paragraph style for like my exam questions, and then the EPQ is just whatever the heck I want. Another side note story is, so I was so stressed the morning on Monday, so I had like 2 different sheets. I had to have 2 different teachers sign because I had subject specific teachers sign each essay, because I had my EPQ teacher and then I had my psychology teacher. And basically I was so stressed, I had the opposite teacher sign the opposite paper, and so on top of having to like scan it all in when I went straight home after assembly, I had to like crop the bottom of the paper and then like switch them over and then like scan them in and make it look like they were the same paper, because it was bad. It was really bad. I was like, I feel like I'm doing something really wrong, because like you were supposed to, the whole point in this paper was to authenticate that it was like, that was your work, and it was my work, but like the authentication papers, oh, it was a bit of a mess. I was really stressed. It was not a good time. So read your emails and don't forget things. Definitely write things on your calendar. Okay. All of that happened, yes, but we made it through, and I got an interview. Like, that was insane. I called my mom straight away and I was like, I got an interview. It was so exciting. But here's my tip number 9, I think. So once you've gotten your email for your interview, don't get too stressed and don't like work it up too much in your mind. Because if you think about it too much and you like stress about it and you stalk your interviewers like I may or may not have done, you don't think about the important details, you don't prepare for the right thing, then the interview becomes this big mammoth of a thing that becomes unmanageable and really stressful. So, and get excited about it. Like, your interview is supposed to be fun. Like, well, it's not supposed to be fun. What I'm trying to get across here is that the best piece of advice that I received was that you should really be excited and happy that you've made it this far, and that you should just make the most of your interview, because it may or may not be your only experience with Oxford or Cambridge, and yeah, just make the most of it and try to enjoy it. Tip number 9 is actually how to prepare for your interview. So for me, I did 2 proper mock interviews. I did one with my school, so that was really nice. I did it with my psychology teacher. If your school doesn't automatically or doesn't ask you if you want an interview, you should go and find a subject-specific teacher to try to give you that interview. They will more than likely be happy to, if they won't ask someone else. Because honestly, the mock interview is the best thing that you can do to prepare yourself for it, and especially if you choose a teacher you're not as comfortable with, or you're slightly afraid of or scared of, because if you're too comfortable with them, it won't feel exactly like the interview. It won't feel exactly like the interview anyways, but yeah, you want to put the stress on you. You want to put yourself in situations where you have to think deeply about certain questions, because if you're doing it for the first time in the interview, you may just panic. You may lose all your words, and that may happen anyways, but at least you'll have done it before, and then yeah. I also had the opportunity to have a mock interview with the person that I did the work experience for. I don't even know what he is. He works for Oxford, and he works for sociology in Oxford. I don't think he actually does any interviews, but he talks to a lot of people who do. Maybe he has done an interview or 2 before, but I know that's not his main job. I did talk to some other Oxford people who do give interviews, because I may or may not know a lot of people who go to Oxford, who work at Oxford from my church, which is really lucky for me and was definitely very helpful for the process. I probably should have known more about the process because of all the connections that I had, but I just didn't think it through. I didn't ask enough questions. So I had that mock interview with him, and that was really useful. I was also really lucky to have a dad who has a degree in, I think it's neuroscience or something. He had a degree in something like that, but basically he knows quite a bit about psychology. And so for weeks leading up to the interview, during dinner and just in the evening, he would ask me lots of just different thought-provoking questions, or he'd ask me about the book that I was reading, or different things on my personal statement, just to keep me on my toes and my brain thinking, and that definitely really helped. So if you can get your family involved asking you questions, that would be really useful, especially if you have parents who happen to be interested in your topic, or yeah. So for my actual interview, I kind of touched on it already. I really enjoyed the process, and I think that's the best thing you can take away from your interview. My interview day, I've watched other YouTubers, and they make in Oxford, it sounds like they stay for a couple days, but in Cambridge when I went, it was just, I had 2 set interviews. I didn't have to do any more interviews, and I went in the morning with my mom, and we went on the park and ride. I went into my interview, I came out of my interview, I ate some Five Guys, and then I went back to my interview, and then we left. It was just really straightforward. It was really great. I was fairly calm, except for the one time I almost cried in my second interview because they were asking me something about one of the graphs that they gave me in the reading thingy. He was asking me what was wrong with it. I just didn't know, and he just kept probing me, and I was like, I don't know. And then I got a little bit emotional, and then he was like, quickly moving on, and he didn't say that, but he was quite kindly. In my opinion, the people that I had were very calming. They were really nice. I really enjoyed all the conversations I had. Sometimes you would say things out loud and you're like, was that really intelligent? But you just move past it, and then you block out all the horrible parts of your interview, and you never have to think about it again if you don't want to. So yeah, now we're to the conclusion of the video. I hope you enjoyed me basically talking about absolutely nothing for 15, 20 minutes, I don't know. So my main conclusion is probably to apply to Oxbridge. If you have any desire and you think you could get in, or maybe you don't think you could get in, but you have a desire to go, and they have the perfect course or whatever, do apply. Don't let your grades stop you. Not everyone has all A stars in their GCSEs. I definitely didn't have all A stars, but some people even get in with B's from their GCSEs. If the whole application process is scaring you and you're afraid, oh, I won't be able to get through an interview, I think the admission test is just too hard, I have no essays or whatever, I have nothing to write in my personal statement, you're probably wrong. You can do it. It's not that difficult. It is difficult and it does stretch you, but it stretches you and makes you grow as a person, and it's such a good experience, and I highly recommend it. I'm so glad I applied. I'm so glad I got an offer. I'm super excited to get my results back and see if I'm actually going there, because I think I just might be crushed and I might just die a little bit inside if I don't. But let's ignore that. We're happy people. It's only about a month away. Whew. So if you enjoyed this video, please do like and subscribe. I hope to take you along, and if I do end up going to Cambridge, you'll be seeing lots of me there, and I'll try to vlog my experiences and hopefully answer any questions that you have if I actually go. So yeah, hope you enjoyed the video. See you later.